Welcome everyone to another easy algo training. Super happy to see you all here today. In today's session, we're going to cover some super exciting stuff. We're going to go through all the weekly pivots. As you know, it's Monday today, so we got all the new weekly pivots, which is one of the most exciting days for me because this is where we can plan our entries for the week and we can actually get some excellent weekly entries. We can also get entries early into the market because, as you know, guys, these pivots come to us before anyone else knows about them. We get access to this weekly pivot at the market open first thing Monday morning, which means we have access to the best trending coins for that week. So I'm going to go through all the new pivots and I'm going to show you guys possible entries, exactly how we're going to look at approaching these coins this week. There's been quite a few really nice coins that have popped into the scanner bot, or if you've got the app. So there's lots of very nice coins to trade this week. And then I want to go a little bit into the Vwap. Lots of people have been asking me questions about the Vwap. So I'm going to go a little bit into the Vwap, just showing you how we can use it for extra confirmation, what it is, how it works, what are the benefits, and basically how to use it properly. And then I've also got a list of questions. I asked everyone in the group to send me some questions. So I got a very nice list of questions. So what I'll do is I'll read every person's question and then I'll answer the question, read the question, answer the question. Just want to make sure all of you guys are getting a lot of clarity and understanding how to use the system to its maximum potential. That there are only a certain amount of moving parts. At first, it can seem overwhelming, but the more you focus and do the trainings and come to these live trainings and ask questions, before you know it, it'll be super clear, and then we'll be able to fine tune, your ability to use this indicators and the automation system that we have. It works super well, guys. So definitely take advantage of the system we've created. I'm here to support you. We've got a very supportive group as well. So make sure to ask lots of questions and let us begin. So first of all, I want to start with just a little bit of psychology because I know a lot of people, this is one of the most important things, like I don't go over it enough. And I think it is super, super important to cover it more. So you can see here, guys, trading is not a marathon. Trading is a marathon, excuse me. Trading is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a sprint. And this is a big thing to keep in mind, a massive thing to keep in mind, because if you treat it as if it is, how do we change this now? If you treat it as if it is a sprint, you're going to lose all your money. You're going to lose all your money. Like I've seen it with many traders messaging me, telling me how they've lost, so much money, because if you want to make quick money, if you have a gambler's mentality, trading is not going to work for you, because a gambler, he approaches trading as going all in. He goes all in. It's kind of like you're at the roulette table. It's like a 50-50. It's like, gambling implies there's a certain chance to it, where trading is very calculated. Trading is very analytical. Trading is one of those things that you can, to a very high degree, you can actually plan a good trade before it happens. That's why we have traders who are very successful, because they plan in advance. They understand the movement of the market. They understand, they take their time to analyze, to observe, to watch the token. So it's very important to realize that trading is a marathon. It moves at a slow pace. If you want quick profits, you're also going to have quick losses. So, it's like I've seen this with guys before, going in and wanting to make a lot of money, because it's extremely seductive. You have this gateway, this exchange gateway, which gives you access to so much money. We can leverage trade, so you can take $1,000 and trade with $10,000 account or $50,000 account. It's very, very easy, to just push a button and all of a sudden you've got this massive account, and you're so close to making a fortune. When you trade with a massive account, you're so close to making a fortune, but you're equally as close to losing it all. So it's all about your mindset. Like, mindset is the key to trading. It really is the key to trading. The strategies are simple, like you can teach these strategies to 15-year-old children and they will understand them. The strategy is super simple. The most important part of all of this is mindset. Really, getting your mindset right. Mindset is the key. So from now on, I'm definitely going to start talking a lot about it and just what kind of mentality do you have as a trader? Do you see trading as a long-term thing? You know, are you willing to take the time to build your capital slowly? And because the thing with trading is, sure, if you become a good trader, you will make a fortune. You will make good money from the market. That is guaranteed. But the thing is that if you focus on only the money, on leading with the money, then the chance of you losing it is much quicker. But if you focus on leading with the skill set, leading with the discipline, with the focus, leading with understanding the formula, we've got a formula that works, the strategy. If you commit yourself to mastering the strategy, mastering the formula, the the profits, the fortune will be automatic. It will come. It will definitely come. But if you lead with the money, you will lose the money very, very quickly. I've seen it so many times. I've experienced it when I started trading. I've seen it through so many traders. So the key is to shift your mentality. I know we all here because we want to make money. We want to change people's lives. We want to change our families' lives, our friends' lives, our own lives. We want to obtain financial freedom. I know for a lot of people, this is one of the reasons why trading is so attractive, because what it can offer you an amazing life, it can offer you freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. It pretty much can offer you everyone's dreams. It has that potential. But first, the work needs to be done. First, the work needs to be done. And sometimes it can take a while. If you're just starting trading and you're only going to put in 1 month's dedication, and if it's not going to work for you, you're going to leave, then trading is not for you. We have to treat it like a profession. We have to treat it like any other skill, any other art form. Any other profession in life requires time, focus, dedication. It requires a lot of hard work initially. And then the more focus you give it, the more time you give it. And guys, trading is really fun. Like when I trade, it feels like I'm playing a game. It's not actually such hard work. Initially in the beginning, it was hard work, but the more you begin to learn how everything works, the more you understand that, and it's like this holy grail moment that happens. One day, everything starts to click into place for you. You see a trade, you execute it, you plan it, and it goes according to plan. You make amazing profits. You walk away and you feel absolutely incredible because of the execution, because of the time you put in. This will happen for all of you. But I really want to stress this enough, is that trading is a marathon. Allow it to happen slowly. Allow it to happen. Allow yourself to be consistent. If you have a gambler's mentality, it's like roulette. You can lose it just as quick as you can make it. And I've seen it before. You might go all in on a trade and make a fortune, and then on the next trade you'll lose it all because your mentality. Remember, the state of being that you operate from, the energy you give off is the energy you get back. And trading is one of those things that will reveal your character to you so clearly. You will learn a lot about yourself by the way that you trade. So we can use trading as a reflection to get in touch with how are you as a person. What is your character? What is your traits? Like trading will teach you about you, and every person will have to adapt trading to their personality. Some traders don't like to wait a long time, so then they trade on the lower time frames, on like the 5-minute time frame, the 1-minute time frame, and they get instant gratification from quicker trades. Other traders don't like this super fast adrenaline paced trading, so they trade on higher time frames. So you will adapt trading to your personality, to your style, and essentially each person in here will develop their own unique way of trading. You can give every person the exact same formula, and every person will create their own strategy and their own unique way of trading. So the more time you put into it, the more you will find your edge, the more you'll find your unique way of trading, and you'll take a little bit from everyone. If I look back on my trading career, I've taken a little bit from everyone. I've taken a bit from all my teachers. you know, everyone that inspired me along the way, anyone that had like a certain edge, because the key is we're looking for an edge and we're taking pieces, and then you kind of build them into your own style, your own character, and then you develop your own unique style of trading that makes more sense to you than anyone. You know, if you look in the group, we've got excellent traders and they've developed their own style, but they've put in the time, they've put in the focus, and you will inevitably get in the rewards. But let yourself lead with making sure you're entering the trades properly, making sure you're putting the time in to analyze the chart properly, making sure your focus is mainly on the technical analysis, making sure you do everything properly, and the rewards will be secondary. You know, you will immediately get rewarded if you lead with proper technical analysis, and then next is the state of being that you're in. You know, it's so important to trade in a good state. You know, like this is a very overlooked thing that not a lot of people talk about. Your state of being is crucial to your success as a trader. If you're in a bad state, it's important to recognize that and not trade on that day, because you will not be able to be as effective as a trader. You will be emotionally compromised. As I spoke in the last live, you know, our emotions rule our decisions. And if we're not in a very balanced emotional state, it's harder for us to make clear, good decisions. So it's so important to get your psychology, get your mindset right, you know, and understand that this is a slow game. Trading is a slow game. And sometimes we need to slow it down. We need to slow it down, because when you go too fast, I've seen it, you can blow up. Trading is one of those things where you can literally explode. You can blow up. And I've blown up a few times. So I know what it's like. Sometimes it can feel like you're at war, you know, you're at war. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to what I'm saying. But then the more you trade, the more you understand, the more you want things to be slower in terms of like your mind being calm, your mind being slow, and also your emotions, your adrenaline, that kind of thing. So yeah, these are important things. Take them to heart. Trading is a marathon. Allow it to be a marathon. Rather focus on being consistent with the skills, you know, consistent with your back testing. And cool. So let us dive in there. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to take you into the charts, and we're going to go through all the weekly pivots. We're going to go through all the new weekly pivots, and I'm going to show you. We're going to go through all the new ones because we have an amazing week ahead of us, and we can take advantage of it. A lot of these coins are already moving, guys. They have already started moving, and hope you guys have been in the Discord and got access to these narrow pivots, because they are really doing good at the moment. So what I've done is I went into the Discord, and for those of you that don't know, in the Discord, we've got a section called the Trend Scanner, and it brings all these narrow pivots. It brings these narrow pivots to you every single day. Every week gets the weekly narrow pivots. Every day get the daily narrow pivots. And they are super effective. Like you'll see big movements happen from these pivots.
Can't see your screen, Seth.
Oh, you can't see my screen. Okay, let's thank you for letting me know. You can't see
No
my
problem.
screen. What do you see?
Just says Easy Algo has started screen sharing. Blank screen
Oh,
with
really?
some text.
Oh, it's so weird because when I look at the screen sharing option here, it shows me, okay, I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll try again and then let me know. Thanks for letting me know. I mean, I could have gone on and no one. Okay, so let me try now. Can you see my screen now?
Just says Easy Algo has started screen sharing.
Yeah, me too. I can't see it either.
Yeah, no screen, just black.
That's so weird because it says here that
I
I'm
see it on
showing
my
it.
end, Seth.
Can you see on your end?
I do. Yeah, I see your chart.
Okay,
Not-
that's
not
so
here.
interesting.
Can't
Why
see
do some
anything.
people?
We
I
can't.
can't.
Some people
I can't.
you can't see it.
No, it just says Easy Algo started screen
You've
sharing.
got this.
The black screen.
You've got the spinning wheel.
Yeah, same
That
for
is-
me. Can't see it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm not sure what to do because it says I'm screen sharing. Some people can see it. Okay, some people can't see it.
I'll test for all of us. I'll jump out and jump back in and see if it fixes it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've
awesome,
done.
awesome.
Do we have to be signed in? Maybe that's why. 'Cause I'm not signed in on Zoom.
Maybe it's a glitch, glitch in the system.
Yeah, I could see it before you changed your before you stopped your last slide, Seth. And
You
then
could see it before then.
yes.
Okay.
And then it's
Okay,
just,
let me
as
let me
everyone
try.
says, yeah.
I logged out and logged in, and it was fine. Yeah.
I jumped out and jumped back in, and I could see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really? Can you see it now? Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
I
see
can
it now.
Yeah, now it's working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't know what that was. I didn't really change anything.
I,
Okay,
I was the gremlin. I had to get out and get back in and fix it for everyone.
I can
good job,
see it
man.
now.
Good job. Okay, cool. Okay, everyone can see. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, cool. So let's get back to this. So what I've done is I've taken all the narrow pivots that are in the Discord and I made a file. I'm sure you guys, if you've seen that in the Discord, you can access the little file now and you can import it directly. There's a video. If you guys don't know how to do it, let me see. Otherwise, I can quickly show you as well. I've just got to do the screen sharing again.
Yeah, you just have to log out and log back in and you can see it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Can you guys see the Discord? Let's see if this is working now.
Nope, can't
No.
see the Discord.
Okay. I don't know what's up with the screen sharing.
Oh,
I
it's
see
gone
the
back to
Discord.
it's gone back to the spinning wheel. You must have done something.
Oh man, it's so weird. I'm trying to share. I want to show you, move into the Discord and it's not letting me do this. Okay. Is it working now?
No.
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 I see the screen. I do see the.
It might be changing the application rather than the actual monitor, I think. Is there a different option when you share screen to, like in Discord, we can share screen or we can share application? Is there a different option to share?
In Zoom, you just pick the tab that you want to show and you can just click on the tab. And then, I mean, I've been doing it like that for weeks. It's so weird.
Back again.
Okay, it's back now. It's back.
Is it back now?
You can see the chart.
Okay.
On the chart.
I don't want to change it. So, okay, what I did was I'll just describe it. I went into the Discord. I got all the narrow weekly pivots, and then I created a file, and then I imported them all in here. So we got a list of all these narrow pivots. And we have an advantage, guys, because as the market opens up, we can get access to these narrow pivots, which is going to really help us to give us an edge, to find out what is the best tokens to trade. And the weekly pivots really do take off. Like over the last few weeks, I monitor them from the moment it opens up, and these things move. And you can see they're already taking off. Like I hope you guys got into a few of them already. So I'll just go through a bunch of them and just talk about entries. And you can see I've added the Vwap onto the chart here. So what I've been practicing with the Vwap and the EMA. I've been looking at the difference between the two and finding out how we can use them as extra additional confluences, for more confirmation of entries, and it's been working extremely well, like very, very well. So what I've done in this example, in the Vwap, I've just turned on the weekly Vwap because I'm primarily focused on entering on the weekly pivot, in this example, just because it's the new week. Tomorrow, I would focus more on the daily pivots because price might have moved up off the weekly, and then we can start getting more entries within the dailies, which I'll show you as well. So you can see in this example, we've got Atom. The market opened up. So first things you want to look for, which I always pay attention for, is where is price when it opens. So you can see when the market opened, the price was kind of in the grid. And look at where the EMA is. So like I've just been testing out the EMA a lot in terms of market opening. What I've noticed is when the grid opens up above the EMA, this tends to be more of a trending market. You'll see, like I'll show you some examples. The EMA is above, some is below. But what I've noticed is when the pivot, the weekly pivot is above this is a 200 EMA over here. It seems to be more of a trending market. And then over here, we've got the weekly VWAP. And you can see at this point where we got this candle, it kind of broke above the VWAP. This is the point I would have looked for an entry. So like I've been testing this VWAP as just as an additional entry tool. So you can see we're on the grid over here. We got this big candle break above the VWAP. So this would have been an entry, because you'll see that when price gets away from this VWAP, it really starts to take off, and it comes down for a retest, comes back up, and then it shoots. So the VWAP is basically a dynamic pivot. It's a dynamic pivot. And you can see over here, we've got the previous day's VWAP over here. It forms a line. You can see we've got two things that I like to look at over here. Well, let me turn on, I want to turn on the other pivots. I'm going to turn off the monthly and then turn off more of these ones here. So here we go, you can see. So if you look at the previous pivot, look how wide it is. It's like so massive. This is one of the things that really caught my attention when I looked at this. So we've got a massive wide pivot over here. And then the next day, well, the next week, look how tight it is now. Can you see the difference? I'll show you. This one is only this big. Like, this is another thing that I really pay attention to, is just how it's, you know, it's showing like a squeeze from the top to the top. And then you'll see over here, look how much smaller it is. So we've got this squeezing that actually happens. And you can see it usually happens gradually. So if you look at this one, this one is a lot bigger. And then the next one is a little bit smaller. So we can see every week price is getting tighter and tighter. Can you see? It's like actually getting tighter. And then this week it's looking super tight. And this is like it's a great visual representation to see how price is actually squeezing. You know, it goes into a squeeze. And there's other ways to look at it. So like you can see it would be similar to kind of like price going into an apex like this. You know, it's getting tighter and tighter. Let's go to the 1 hour. You can see over here. It's kind of like going into an apex. You can see price is getting, the apex was big over here, then it's just getting smaller and smaller. Can you see it like tighter and tighter? This is kind of what is actually happening in this process. But the pivots just allow you like a really good visual representation to actually see what's going on. So that's one of the things I always look for. I look for this squeeze. It's getting tighter, tighter, and tighter. And then when we get a nice tight, like this pivot over here today is a picture perfect pivot. This is one of the best pivots you will see. Really, I always look out for these, and I look out for the succession. So like whether you're looking at the daily or the weekly, I always look at least 2 back. So I look at the 3 and I see, you know, the story from all of them, how it's gotten smaller and smaller. I mean, you can see over here, the pivots are actually in the exact same place. They're in the exact same place. There wasn't much to change. But then today's pivot is actually lower. And in some cases, this could be seen as a descending pivot. It's lower. But another thing I noticed was if you look over here, can you see price broke below the pivot over here? And since here, it's been under the pivot for the last week and a half, let's just say almost. It's been under the pivot. And then now it opened up above the pivot. So we call that a reversal pivot, because this week over here, it's underneath the pivots. You see it's underneath, but then this week it opens on the pivot. So that's showing a reversal of a pivot. So this is another telltale sign we can look out for. Price is opening on the pivots, number 1. Number 2, we've got this squeeze, this nice squeeze. This pivot is looking nice and tight. Number 3, we've got a very nice tight pivot, weekly narrow pivot, which is showing it's a trending market. So those are like lots of little components that we can keep into mind. And those are the little details that I look out for. And I've just noticed the backtesting really works out great. And then we can use either the VWAP or the EMA for more confirmations. So I never used to use the VWAP or the EMA that much, but I'm starting to, you know, Pramod, his strategy introduced me to combining the EMA with this. And I've been testing a lot with the VWAP because it's one of the new indicators and it seems to be really working well. So you can see in this example here, this is, okay, I'll go to the 1 hour. Because the thing with the EMA, you know, it changes on every time frame, whereas the VWAP stays exactly the same, no matter what time frame you're on. And you can see over here, at this point, we got a break. This is a 1 hour break. So a 1 hour is a very good time frame to look at with the EMA, because if price breaks above a 1 hour, you can see, if you look at the chart before, Price has been underneath this 1 hour all the way since here. It's been under this 1 hour, and now all of a sudden it's about to break above it. So this can show us that there's potential. Hello?
Yeah, hi. Just one question. So
Yeah.
for the EMA, you say it's changing on every time frame. But I think there is
Yes.
a setting that you can say not on the chart,
Yes,
the
yes.
time not on the chart, but on the 1 hour, for example. Yeah. So you can fix it like for every time frame now it's on it's the data from the 1 hour.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So now we're actually very fixed. We know that the VWAP's not going to change the EMA or the pivot. So we can actually enter on any time frame. That's excellent. Nice one. Thank you. So then you'll see at this point here, like the way I used to enter this was on the grid, and it is a very good entry, and I still do that. I still will enter on the grid. But if you want a very, very confirmed entry, either when it breaks above the VWAP, number one, or when it breaks above this 1 hour EMA. Because I've noticed the 1 hour EMA, if it gets, you'll see like if we go into the past, if it gets above or below that, it stays above it for quite a while. Like if you look in the past all the way here, I'll just turn off the VWAP for now. Here, price got above it over here. And look, it stayed above it all the way. Okay, it might have come down here and we got these little fake outs. Here, it broke below it and it stayed all the way underneath. So I've been back testing this a lot on the 1 hour, and it looks like if you get a clean break above it, you can see, look at this break below. This is another thing. This is a clean break below. It wasn't like, it didn't just retest it. Like you can see this, sometimes this can be confusing when we get these because it looks like it's breaking below, but then it bounces up. But in this example, we got this big break below, and then you can see at this point, it's properly underneath there. So then we know it's on a downtrend. So you can see in this example, price is underneath the EMA, price is underneath the grid. So this would have been your short entry underneath the grid if we were working on this strategy over here. Would have entered over here. And next week, we've done the same thing. Price opens up, comes close to the grid, another entry. And then eventually now we're getting this whole reversal. So look at the story it's creating. We've got this reversal pivot. So now price is opening on top of the pivot. So the opening of price in relation to the pivot really gives us a lot of information as well. You know, sometimes it'll open below and then it'll break above, but most of the time, if price opens up either in the middle of the grid or above the grid, the chances are it's going to be more of a bullish market, exactly like this is playing out. And then we've got the EMA, which is the next thing to look out for. And you can see at this point over here, it broke the EMA over there, and then it came and broke it over here. So this could have been another entry. So there's a few different ways to enter this. You know, there's ways with confirmation, there's ways without confirmation. You could have entered just with the VWAP over here. So the VWAP, what I've noticed is the VWAP gives you, so I'm just going to turn off the EMA now. The VWAP gives a little bit of different information. So you'll see over here, the VWAP at this point, it shows you, okay, look, it breaks below, it comes up to retest. Then at this point over here, it is officially underneath that VWAP. And you'll notice price starts to move away from the VWAP. Can you see? And then it keeps a distance. It keeps a little space between the actual price and the VWAP the whole time. That is when you know that it's not going to cross back over. And look, it stayed underneath there. It came to retest over here. It came to retest. And then here it broke over here's the place where it broke over the VWAP again. So, I mean, we like to use it in combination with other things. Like I wouldn't have entered along really here because this pivot, I don't know, I would have waited for a tighter pivot because we can choose between so many assets, we can actually wait for the best pivots. So like, even though these were, like you can see over here, this is a very wide pivot, then this is a little bit like wider, then it starts getting smaller, and then it gets nice and tight. If we want to wait for a really nice entry, it's important to wait for these nice tight pivots to form. And you'll see, like, you won't always see them, and they are different. You know, you don't have to trade only these, but in my experience, these ones have been incredibly good movers, like really good movers. So we would have seen price is on top of the grid. It's on top of the Vwap. Over here, it's on top of this EMA. And I mean, you can obviously figure out like which ones you like to use the most. I'm just testing them out and sharing my discoveries and learnings with you guys. And but they all seem to work very well. At this point over here, it's officially above like both of them. You can see it breaks up. We get a nice clean break. So this here was like, you can see it got above and then it dropped below. Here was a like a bigger break above. We got this nice big candle, came to retest at this point where you can see the VWAP and the EMA are kind of like meeting up over here. And that is where price is retesting. That could have been a very, very solid entry into this. So there are multiple places to enter. I like to enter just on the grids. That's my style of entering. Like Pramod, who was teaching his strategy a few weeks ago, he likes to use the EMA for confirmation. And he's also got his own way of doing it. If you haven't seen his video, it wasn't, if you go look at the live training, it was the last two that he recorded that. It's an excellent video to check out. His strategy is amazing. He's getting extremely good, consistent results. So this would have been the layout. And remember, it's just the start of the week. So like, I wouldn't be surprised, because this is such a narrow pivot, I wouldn't be surprised if this shoots all the way up here, 20%. Like the weekly, yes?
Can I just ask, would you trade what you see there, or would you use indicator X as well? Or would you just trade it as you see it now?
I would trade it just as I see it now. Okay. You can, you know, like indicator X, you can mix it together and look for entries, and it's also a standalone indicator, so you could trade it on its own. Like you see over here, I put indicator X on, and I'm on the 5-minute chart with the multi bar. You can see this would have been an entry with indicator X over here, because at this point it's quite confirmed we're above the pivots. We're above the pivot, we're above the VWAP, we're above the EMA, and then we get a contraction box forming. Price dips below the contraction box. Okay, there wasn't a confirmation on the TDIX, but it's a confirmation enough. If price is above, if it's above the weekly pivot and above the EMA and above a VWAP, that is showing you that it's in very bullish territory. So then it's only normal that our bias would be bullish, and then if we got a contraction box in the value line, we just wait for price to break underneath. So I mean, like maybe if I go into 1 minute and I look at the same scenario over here, it probably would have been, see, okay, it's still not a great shark fin, but there's different ways to do it.
What do you have your swing size set at, please?
How's my swing size? I literally just have it. Okay, on this example, it's 1 because I was looking at a weekly chart actually, but usually I just have it on 2-2 or 3-3. Those are the only settings that I use. If it's a very high time frame, I have it on 2s, and if it's a lower time frame, I have it on 3-3. I don't really look at any other. Oh, look at that! Look, so now that I changed it, can you see in this example how perfect was that? Like, it gave you like quite a few good entries. We could have got an entry over here. We could have got entries over here. See, so it's like there's so many different ways to trade this. There's so many, if we know how to use the tools, and I don't like to overwhelm everyone, you know, with too many tools at once, especially if you're just beginning. But once you understand indicator X really well, when you understand trend X really well, there's so many different ways to enter this. Like if we go here, like you can see over here, this would have been probably one of the best entries. We've got a nice shark fin. It's above the pivot. See, so another strategy is we don't even need the VWAPs. We can just trade like this, primarily because we've got the contraction boxes. See, we've got these contraction boxes, and these contraction boxes are above the weekly grid. They're above the weekly pivot. And if they're above the weekly pivot, that already shows that it's bullish. As soon as price gets above the weekly pivot, we're entering into a middle term. our long term, because we're already above the monthly pivot, we're long term bullish. And if price is above the weekly, it's midterm. So we're at this point, we're very bullish. As soon as price is above this grid, we're very bullish. So when we get a master pattern form, it's only natural that our bias is bullish. And then we just follow the formula. You know, we wait for price to break underneath the value line over here, and we wait for a shark fin. And then we've got another one over here. Okay, this wasn't the nicest looking shark fin, but as price broke back in, that would have been a confirmation. So if we had looked at this, this would have been 2 entries already that we could have taken into this. So like, or we could have just entered on the pivot. Like I like to enter just on the pivot. So like regardless of EMA or anything, I would have just taken an entry right over there. See, if we'd put the EMA on, the EMA was already all the way up here. So if I waited for the EMA, I would have lost like 1% or 2%, but it's all minimal. So yeah, there's so many different ways to use it, and this is one of the ways to use it, especially on the weekly. If you see price, if you see the weekly open up over here, and price gets above this nice thin weekly, all you got to do is turn on indicator X and wait for these lovely entries underneath the value line. That is also another way to trade this. It works super, super well. I recommend, you know, whatever you are gravitated towards. Like I share a lot of different things. And then backtest, you know, like I backtest more than I even trade, you know, because backtest is where I learn so much about how the market works. You know, if you analyze the previous market data, you can see exactly how it works. And here's another really great example. If we look at mask, which is another one of the narrows, and you can see we've got, in this example, it looks really good actually. And I'll show you what the difference is from the previous one. In this example, that's different is when the market opens, it opens already above the EMA. It's above the 1 hour EMA, and it's gotten just above the pivot over here. So you can see it's different from the previous example. We're already above this 1 hour EMA. Now it's above the pivot. So this can be a very great place to look for entries. You know, you can enter on the break over here. Let's put on the Vwap and see what the Vwap looks like. So the Vwap, it's still, sometimes the Vwap, it kind of ranges before it takes off. So it's like I'm still trying to figure out the Vwap and how to get better confidence. I've seen it on some coins, it looks really, really good. But that's why you just have to check. But this would have been a great entry. Like I like to enter on the grid, and you can see price went up. But if you look here, entering over here, price went up, then came down, then went up and then came down, then went up and came down. And this is very usual. I've noticed this happening a lot on the grid. So now that I'm saying it, just notice it and keep it in mind. When we get the market open on a weekly and price opens just above the grid, sometimes there is this ranging up and down, and it'll happen a little bit before it eventually takes off. I've noticed we get this range and then eventually it shoots off away from the pivot. But in this interim, don't get too freaked out, because sometimes, like I remember when I started trading pivots, I would enter here and then it would come down, then it would break over here, and then I'd get a little worried over here. You know, it broke out, and I'm like, oh no, is it breaking below the pivot? But the nice thing about the EMA, you can see it's above the EMA. So as long as it stays above this EMA, this is where the EMA becomes even a stronger confluence. Is now we found a narrow pivot that was above the hourly EMA, which can become a very good pivot to actually trade. And then if we had to, okay, in this example, if we had to merge in indicator X now, you can see we got incredible entries. So imagine like over here, we saw this contraction, and then price broke below, this would have been one entry. Price broke below again, this would have been another entry. Price broke below again. See over here, we've got price below 2 value lines. It's below the major and the origin value line. So these would have been our fantastic entries, even though price broke below this weekly pivots. What's that? Oh, it's all good. So, and then we can use the Vwap for our confirmations. And you can see this would have been one of the best entries over here. Looks super, super good. And then we've got another one over here, another shark fin. So remember, everything is based on our bias. Everything is based on the bias. And we use the tools, like we use the pivot to confirm a bias. We're using the EMA to confirm a bias. You know, the more confirmation tools we can get, the more we can be certain when we're entering, for instance, off of indicator X. If there was no indicator X here, and we chose just to enter, if we take it off, you can see it looks very different. So it's like indicator X does make it easy. And I like to use indicator X all the time because it just gives you a new way of seeing. I don't know, for me, I feel very safe. If I see a contraction box here and it's above the weekly pivot, I feel safe knowing that if price did break below here, it's okay, because I know that this contraction box is above the pivot. And when a contraction box is above the pivot, because remember, guys, like this is the first phase in the market cycle over here, this contraction box. We know price has gone into a contraction. So we know at this point, I'll mark this out. At this point over here, we know that a new cycle is starting. And because it's starting above this narrow pivot, these narrow pivots, they represent a trending market. So like if I see this cycle, master pattern cycle, develop above the pivot, then I know it's going to start. I know what's going to happen next. Next is going to be the expansion phase. And you'll see price will expand. And then I'm just waiting for it to go into the trend phase, where eventually it will shoot up into a higher zone, you know, because of the fact that we're above the EMA and above the pivot, we can assume with a great degree of accuracy that when this does go into the third phase, which is the trending phase, that it's going to go upwards. But these are the things that I look for. And I mean, even if you just wanted to scalp trade, like maybe because we're entering off of a weekly pivot, these usually they move quite high. So you'll see in this example, okay, this is very, very high, but like if we look from price to the first resistance is 15%, and the next is 32%. And like I've seen these things shoot all the way up here on these weekly type pivots. I wouldn't even be surprised, you know, but like we can assume that it will at least get to the first resistance point. You know, like 80% of these narrow pivots do at least get to the first resistance point, if not even to the other ones, you know, based on probabilities. And over the last few months, I've been analyzing these pivots like every single Monday, and I've seen that a high degree of accuracy, they usually get to that kind of level. So we can enter these positions. This would have been, you know, prime entries over here, because it's like it doesn't get better than this in terms of entries.
I have a question.
Yes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's the question?
Oh, great. All right, thanks. So if, let's say, we missed the first couple hours on the weekly narrow.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to use the indicator X to search for the next entry.
Yes, exactly. It will definitely help you. So what you can do is you can either use indicator X, or if there was no indicator X, you can just wait for price to come back down to the grid. So you'll see like it would come back, break down, and then I would have entered again over here as it got back on top of the grid. So there's different ways, or you can just you'll see if we used indicator X, we would have actually entered over here. We would have actually got indicator X really helps you get like incredibly good entries. It's actually unreal. And then it also depends on your trading style. You know, because it's a weekly, if you wanted to hold for maybe a longer term trade, you would have entered, you know, on the grid, and then you would just hold it for a few days. Like I'm still holding JUP from like the weekly narrow from like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's like done 160% or something. So like you can hold these things for like a long period. But otherwise, if you wanted to sculpt this as well, then I would turn on the liquidity lines, and you could have already had like 3 or 4 trades over here. You can see like if we'd sculpted, we would have entered, maybe this could have been an entry, and then we would have just exited at a liquidity line. So it just depends on your style of trading as well. Like here, we might have entered over here and we could have exited a liquidity line. And you'll see, look how perfect it was. It like it hit those liquidity lines like spot on. So like you can see, you could have had 3 trades. This was 1%, 2%. This is already like 6% you would have made off these 3 just random trades. Or you could have just entered at these low level positions close to the grid. I like to enter as close to the grid as possible. Like as close to this grid as possible would be the best places to look for entries. Because
hey Seth.
Yes.
Seth.
Yes.
Can you check PolyX, mate? It's a great example of using TrendX.
PolyX. Is that it over here?
From our daily it's from our daily narrows.
I just closed
perfect.
I just closed a 500% trade on that because I got
Oh, really? Nice one, man.
Yeah, just at that gray contraction zone.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so let's have a look over here. Let's look on the. Wow, that looks like a fantastic trade. Look at that. So you can see, let me turn. So you were saying you were on the daily. So let me turn off some of these. See, look how perfect this was. I'm going to turn off indicator X and I'll turn it back on now. So this would have been perfect. Even though the weekly wasn't like super narrow, it didn't really matter too much in this scenario. The fact is price was above this weekly and it's above the daily. So I mean, look at that. And look at this daily narrow. It is super, super tight. So this would have been like an amazing entry if you just entered purely off of trend X. Then if we had to turn on indicator X, you can see price shot up, came down. So like this would have essentially been another re-entry, or in price. I mean, it didn't really come underneath there that much, but we could have even gone to a lower time frame. So if you're entering off of a daily pivot, you can go into a 1 minute, a 5 minute. So you can see over here, this would have been great re-entries over here. Fantastic. Here would have been one. Here would have been one. See, every time price was underneath these value lines. Or you can enter, if you wanted to enter on the trend X strategy, that's an entry when price breaks above these 2 blue lines, which is the previous day high and resistance 1. That would have been an entry. Hit target 1, came back down. Or here would have been another entry. See, so like there's so many entries you could have actually taken. And this was, look at this. Oh, this thing hit target 1, target 2, target 3, and it's still going. Super strong. Wow, look at that, eh? Let's turn off this. Nice trade, bro. Very nice.
Seth, can I ask you something?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I've got your lifetime thing, and I'm doing the study thing on your easy algo, but
yes,
I've just got hundreds of lines on my thing. Is there a area in your Discord that shows us how to set it up easier?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you right now if you want.
No, I don't want to take other people's time, man. I mean,
no, it's super quick. So, what pivot are you on?
I mean,
which pivot?
I'm on the 5. I mean, I've got the 5 minute. I mean, I just got lines everywhere on all the time frames.
See, so it depends on what time frame. Because if you look over here, right now I'm on the daily. This is the daily pivot, right? If I go into 1 hour, it's going to look crazy like that. See, so
right, yeah.
Okay, so it probably looks like this, right?
Yeah.
Looks crazy like that. You see, so the first thing you can do, if you want to simplify it, you can just right click and then you can click here, display options. You can choose to only show like 3. So it'll only show 3 or 5. That's one thing you can do. The other thing is if it's a daily pivot, you've got to be on a 5 minute time frame to see it properly. Otherwise, if you're on too high a time frame, it looks very crazy. So if you're on the daily pivot, it's best to be on the 5 minute. If you're on a weekly pivot, 1 hour, and if you're on the monthly pivot, then you want to be like on an 8 hour or 12 hour. And then you, like I said, you can go to display options and you can select show 5 or just show 3, even if you just want to show 1. And then look, you'll just get the.
But do you use it on 3? How do you use it? Do you use it on 3?
Yeah, I
What do
like
you
to
have
use
on
it
the
on
side?
3.
Okay.
I like to use it on 3
Yeah.
because I like to look at least the previous 2 days just to see how the grids, because like if you look at this was a perfect example. You can see how wide is it on this day, how wide is it on this day, then all of a sudden it's tight on this day. So this is what you want to look for. You want to look for this, like the squeezing. You can see over here it's getting tighter, and then all of a sudden here it's super tight, and then you get like this big movement shooting up. So I like to just keep 3. You know, some people like to keep more, but I think go to a lower time frame and it won't look so busy on your chart.
Well, it's still busy. I'm gonna do what you told me to do. Thanks, man.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Otherwise, personal message me as well in Discord afterwards, and I can help you further.
All right. Cheers, man.
Cool. All right, cool. So let me go to, so this was a perfect example, guys. And I really want you to like train your eyes to notice this happening, because it's like every time I see this, it turns into a big move. Like you get this grid and this one looks super messy. It looks wide. It doesn't look nice to trade. This one, you can see it's still super messy, but then all of a sudden this day starts and you've got this tight, perfect looking pivot. And in this example, it's great because it's above the weekly as well. And then it just rockets. So like these narrow pivots really do let us know what is going to happen for that day. It's not always 100%, but it's pretty much like 85% accurate. So let me get into your 30%. That's great. Let me get into a few other. This was the one that I was looking at actually this morning that really took off as well. So in these examples, I'm not really using the daily as much. You can, but I'm just, I'm just showing you purely off the weekly. And then in this example, so you'll see, let me turn on the EMA.
GMX did well.
GMX, okay, cool. I'll check that. I'll check that. Is that also a narrow weekly?
That's a weekly, narrow weekly.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Wonder where it is in my list. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, cool. Let's look at GMX. Now they're all kind of taking off quite nicely, but can you see the same thing is playing out? So it starts on the grid, it starts on the weekly grid, narrow grid, and then we get this ranging above the grid. Like I was explaining to you, it usually happens before it takes off. And this ranging is basically price going into the expansion phase. So if we turn on indicator X, we can see this expansion happening. It's kind of just ranges, and then it eventually goes into the third phase, which is the trend phase over here. So we have to be able to anticipate that we're going to get these little breakouts where price breaks above and below and above and below, because when it breaks below, we could think that the market it's turning against us now, going underneath the pivot. But then you'll see we got this contraction box above there. And I mean, it only really broke above the EMA over here. So this point would really confirm, price has just gotten above that 1 hour, 200 EMA. Things are looking strong. But our entries would have been underneath. This would have probably been a very nice, if we were going off of indicator X, this would have been a very nice entry. And you can see we got a very nice shark fin on the TDI X as well, just to confirm that. Here was another one, another shark fin. But this was it was like just barely underneath. So this one I wanted to show you over here, RSS. This one is different because price is starting above the EMA. So this is just something I've been testing with as well, just noticing the difference. And it seems like they all take off pretty good, but when I see price start, like you can see this was the start of the weekly over here. We can see prices above the EMA, but then it's also, even if it starts, you'll see price started, it broke underneath the pivot, but just the fact that it's above this EMA made me feel confident. Like you can feel confident that it's strong. And then you can see we've got this area over here. And now it can be super confusing because you can see once again, we've got price break back under the grid over here. And also keep in mind that we get these these demand zones that price comes. I always look for the demand zone as well, because sometimes price just breaking down to tap into a demand zone before it goes off. But in this scenario, we've got a few different things that could have worked to our advantage. Number one, we've got this, like, immediately I know that we've got a very good shark fin on the TDIX, super shark fin. We've got this reversal wick over here. Price is underneath the value line. This would have been like a super nice entry. But if you didn't take this entry, you wait for price to get on the grid, that becomes another entry over there. So you'll see, like, whenever price does take off, I've noticed this as well, and this is something you can backtest. When it does break, so like when it officially does come and break this value line, it doesn't go back below it again. You'll see it broke on top and then it just kind of took off, especially since it's an origin. You'll notice, so this could have even been an entry, one entry on the grid, one entry at the break here. Like, I don't know about you guys, if you enter with just one position or if you break up your positions. I normally enter with a few different positions. I'll enter just a small amount and kind of add to it every time it gets more confirmations. But at first it can be tricky, like especially if we didn't have indicator extra. So like we would have probably entered when price got on the grid over there. That would have been an entry. That would have been an entry. And then you'll see, if you had entered here or here, you probably would have been stopped out at this point. And that's okay as well. That is totally okay to be stopped out. You would have probably, this probably would have been your setup if you entered over here. It's not a problem to get stopped out, guys. Like getting stopped out must be something you're totally okay with. You totally don't mind, because it's part of trading. As soon as you start being afraid of being stopped out, you know, I've noticed some people who are afraid of being stopped out, when price comes down here, they actually start moving their stop loss because they're almost afraid of price hitting their stop loss. And then before they know it, it can actually turn into a bigger loss. But take your little loss. It would have win 1%. That's okay. And then when it happens again, that would have been the winning one, you know. This is purely entering just off the pivots. This would have been your winning one, and price didn't go back down again. So there's a few different ways, but usually on these grids, I have noticed that, like, there are a certain percentage of them that will get above, then break below, then get above, then break below, and then take off. So it's almost as if, like, I've even thought about this before, is this pivot, it's almost as if this pivot is kind of like a value line, you know, like a master pattern value line. And you'll see it's like it's ranging. You'll see price ranges above and below, ranges above and below, above and below, and then it goes into the trend phase. So like, I've been playing around with that concept quite a lot, and you'll see if this was a value line, this pivot, our best entries would have been there. You know, if we use the TDI as well, we would have been, that would have been an entry, that would have been an entry. Fantastic entries, actually. So you can either, you can either enter like this, you know, with using indicator X, or you can enter when price just gets on top of the grid. There's so many different ways to enter this, but the main confluence.
How do you get past the psychological belief in the super shark fin on the sells? Like in this particular case, getting in the entry and then riding it up would have been great. But if you notice there, you know, the first reversal, anybody who's panicking watching the chart, which I've done, because if you get into, if you're dumb, you're DGN and you're higher leverage, you see that come up, you're like, oh no, this system knows that it's going to dump. And then next thing you know, it rips up.
No, I know it is. In this situation, the thing that would have kept me safe was this. This would have been my thing that would have kept me safe, purely because this contraction box is above this weekly pivot. See, because it formed above here, I've noticed that whenever it forms above it, it kind of stays above it. If it forms below it, it stays below it. So this, if I saw this, that would have been number one. And number two would have been this. You can see price is above the 1 hour EMA. That would have been one. And number two, the contraction box is above the weekly pivot. Those two things would have made me feel safe in entering this down here. Does that make sense?
Well, if you go back to TDI, you'll see what I meant by, like, on the way up, you see those multiple sell indicators up to the right of it.
Over here. Okay,
super shark fin, super shark fin, super shark fin. You know,
I see.
panicking to exit the trade.
Oh, I see. You think
Because
it's
you
going to turn
assume-
against you there.
Yeah.
You see, like in this situation, right? These things have to be used in context, because if price has momentum and it's going up, it will also do the same thing. It will go into this zone. So like you'll see in this situation, look, we had a sell here, we had a red dot, but look, it kept going up. It didn't even reverse here. You see that? It didn't even reverse. So if price is above, okay, so the weekly pivot means that if price is above it, it's more of like a midterm bullish. It means it's quite a strong bullish if it's above here. So when price is above here, I'm not paying too much attention to these when it's so close to the pivot. I'm not paying too much, especially in this scenario. Like the context of this scenario is like, when I saw this, I was immediately bullish, because you can see prices above this. This EMA is a really great tool to just give you like an understanding of what's going on. Also, if like, I'll show you another way to do this. If you go into a higher time frame, so like if you look at this higher time frame over here, you can see there's a few different ways to look at this. We've got like a trend line that can be drawn, over here. And I like to look at trend lines as well. Like you have to include price action quite a lot. And you'll see that we've got, look at this here, we've got this massive expansion phase happening. Massive expansion phase. And price is above this EMA. And then we've got price that's above the weekly pivot. So this weekly pivot occurred when price broke above this trend line. So sometimes what I like to do is like, I'll turn it onto the line chart, and you can actually see the trend line a little bit clearer, like over there. You see, so like in this situation, price had already dropped quite a lot. You can see from here, it already dropped like 20%. Then it found support over here. Can you see this is price finding support when it's kind of like just ranging up and down in a certain level. And then we've got this big trend line break. And then when price breaks above the trend line, we've got this weekly pivot, which is above the trend line break, and it's also above the EMA. So like in those scenarios, I would have had a one-sided bias. My bias would have just been long. My bias would have been long. So I wouldn't have paid too much attention to these shark fins over here, as all of a sudden it's going to reverse or go against me. I would have been, in this scenario, I would have really only been looking at the buy shark fins and not really the sell shark fins. I'll look at this. I'll start paying attention to the sell shark fins when price starts going higher. Like maybe now would have been a time, like depending if I was just scalping, this would have been area, because you can see we're getting to the highs here. Can you see every time price got, like, it's really important to sometimes zoom out onto a higher time frame and just notice how price has been responding. Every time price got to this level, see it dropped, it got here, dropped, it got there, dropped, it got there, dropped. So now the chances are pretty high that it could drop from this point. So like sometimes you want to look at like more higher time frame support and resistance levels, and then you can see if they coincide with the TDIX. So you'll see like over here might have been you'll see now it might be a good time to exit this trade.
So
But I still think, yes.
I have a question as well. And then also to add, if you add in like the support or resistance to this weekly, it is testing it currently, right? And that's one of the things that you can look at as far as biases, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Look at that. So
and then also
there you go.
With that, like what you're saying is like something when I watched your price action number 6 training, you were talking about how
yes,
the higher time frames always have more relevance in the current market, correct? And that's why you want to go off the higher time frames versus the lower time frames when it comes to biases, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I always zoom out, like, because it's important to understand the environment you're trading within. Like like if I zoom out over here and I go to like a 4-hour or a 6-hour, you can see like I always look at the wicks. The wicks give me a lot of information because it's showing where there's liquidity. So like from this level over here, I'm just going to draw the wicks. This is where prices come to touch the wicks. Okay, we've got some wicks down there. So in this, imagine in this zone is like a liquidity zone. Every time price taps in here, it reverses, taps in, it reverses, taps in, reverses. So sometimes you can even stretch it out and then it'll play out accordingly. So price might come into this zone, which kind of lines up with this resistance over here. So price, this might be a resistance 1 it's hitting now, and then it might hit resistance 2. But every chart is very different. So we have to like look at the specific charts and we have to trade accordingly. Like you'll see over here, all these wicks over here are down in this zone. You can see we've just filled with the wicks. Every time price kind of hits the wick, it goes up, hits the wick, goes up in this liquidity region. So like I like to, I also like to start the chart with nothing on it sometimes. So like, and you kind of building your confidence. So I'll just pick a random one, for instance, here. All right, you see, this is what I did already this morning. I took the chart and then I just started marking out some price action. First thing I noticed, it's a trend line break. So then when I do turn on Trend X, I'm like, oh, wow, look, it's breaking a trend line and it's on top of a weekly pivot. So that's giving me almost like an added confirmation that this thing is going to go upwards now because I've got two major price action things in my favor. And then over here, I look at the high. I'm on this 4-hour. Can you see these big wicks over here? So this would be an area that I would really know that if price got here, this would be a place where it would probably definitely reverse. Because usually price, when it gets close to these wicks, that's where we get these big reversals. And you'll see over here, this was kind of like, so I'll mark out, you'll see like, if you look at this chart, this was an important level right over here because this was the ceiling. At this point, this was the ceiling. Price was rejecting. You can see off the wicks, rejected, came down. And then it broke above here and it found support. You can see this is kind of the support. So then if you mark this out, it's only natural when it comes back to this level, it's going to find support. You see, so there's so many different ways of marking it out. You can see this level. Here it broke above it, then it found support, then it broke below it, then it was resistance. Then it broke, then you can see resistance, then finally broke above it, and then resistance becomes support. So there's like, maybe what I'll do is in the next lesson, I'll just focus on price action to show you guys how to like actually, strip a chart bare and then mark out key levels and understand how price likes to move just with pure price action. And so you see, like in this example, I'll know if price gets up here, could be a very big place where it could reverse, like a really big place. So then I would just target that region. Let's have a look at another one, just with the pure price action. So you can see over here, we can see like, I like to mark out the wicks. Like I really like to locate where are the wicks because wherever wicks are, it's usually where we got these big reversals. You'll see every time price came into this zone, look, we got a reversal. Every time price came into this zone over here, see we mark out these wicks. I'm literally just trying to include as many wicks as I can into this space. That's all I'm really doing. And here's a wick down there, you see? So every time now we can see like now we can trace the liquidity. This is a liquidity area. This was a liquidity area. Every time price came in here, you look at these wicks. And I like to see wicks. A lot of people see the wicks as like a stop hunt. But if you understand this principle, it's not really a stop hunt. It's the most natural place for it to go because it's like it's going to fetch liquidity. So what it does, it fetches liquidity here. Price likes to move from liquidity to liquidity. So if you can learn to spot the liquidity, you can understand where price is going to move to and where is it going to move from. I mean, look at that. Came back in here, got liquidity, moved up here. Then it got sell side liquidity, then came down here, buy side liquidity. So it's only natural that the next place this could probably go is here, and then it might drop from there. And then at the same time, you can see we've got a trend line break over there. There was a trend line break over here. See, if we add in the other grids over here, Let's say we add another 5 grids. So look here. Okay, I know it's looking a little messy, but this would have been another amazing place to enter right over here. And I'll show you why. Primarily because it's breaking a trend line. Can you see it's breaking a trend? So if we were over here only, and I'll go back so it looks a bit cleaner. So if we were looking over here, and we already saw that we can see we had these liquidity, price was tapping into liquidity. We can see this is liquidity because every time price comes to this region, look at these big wicks. You know, whenever you get these big wicks, it's just showing there's a lot of orders being triggered. You see, so there's a lot of obviously massive pending orders in these locations. So when price comes here, it triggers the orders and it leaves these big wicks behind. And then we get this big trend line break over here. Price breaks the trend line and we're left with a nice tight grid. So at this area would have been like such a strong confluence to enter because you've got all those things adding up, tapping into liquidity, breaking trend line, and it's on top of a narrow grid. And then let's see how high does it actually go. And then you see it taps into this liquidity region. So you'll see like back test your charts, just tracing liquidity. I've done this for days and days, you know, and you'll notice that liquidity likes to move to liquidity. It's like pretty fascinating once you can like understand that because it gives you like such a big edge. Let me find another one and see if I can show you again. So you just get a blank chart, you go to a higher time frame. Sometimes it can even be a very high time frame. And then you can just start marking out where you see the wicks, you know. Here's wicks over here. You can see these wicks at the bottom. Some charts aren't going to look as clear as other charts, but you can just start to get an idea where liquidity is resting. So like, for instance, the next possible place that this resistance could occur, now, with this in mind, is there. Because it only shows you this is where price keeps rejecting when it hits this zone. So this is a nice way we can, you know, like to keep this in mind on top of using indicator X. I mean, trend X or indicator X, doesn't matter which one. It's nice it's always good to know price action. Like I really strongly suggest for everyone to learn as much, and I will focus on teaching more price action. But if we had seen that, look, we would have marked, imagine we marked this out on our chart first thing, and then we turn on trend X, and now things look super clear to us because we're like, okay, it's actually just tapped into a liquidity region over here. So it's fetched liquidity. We understand it got liquidity at the bottom. Can you see it's the bottom of the weekly range? And now all of a sudden we've got a new weekly pivot, which is super thin. So it becomes a little bit more obvious that, okay, we're going to enter here. It already tapped. It already got its liquidity. You can see it came down multiple times into this liquidity region to fetch liquidity. Liquidity 3 times, tapped in. And now we've got a weekly pivot. It got on top of the weekly pivot. And not only that, but it's a super tight pivot. Look how tight the pivot is. So we can keep that in mind and know that, okay, even though it's got resistance over here, this is resistance 1, resistance 2, resistance 3. It could still go all the way up to this level because we're just tracing the flow of liquidity on the higher time frame as well, which it could actually go to that level. And I'm sure if we turn on maybe like a monthly pivot, it might have levels up here. So it's always good to keep these things in mind. Like these things help me feel more secure about my decision when I can see this, because I know like over here, this is like it's kind of like a floor, you know. Liquidity regions kind of represent floors and ceilings, or another form of support and resistance. You know, it could even be like one of the truest forms of support and resistance because it's traveling down to fetch liquidity. If you think about a market maker, they want to buy at the cheapest price. And if this level is what they've dictated as the cheapest price for them, they're going to come in there, fill their orders, and they go up there, sell off their orders, come back down, and you'll see price usually follows this trail like really, really accurately. Let's turn this off. Let's go to a higher time frame. So you'll see here another one. It's like we go into like so I'm in a very high time frame now, and you can see over here I'm just trying to find places that have multiple liquidity wicks touching. And you can see that's one region. Here's another one, maybe over here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can go over candles, but like this is the region. This is the region where we can see price. Every time it taps into this region, we get a liquidity line. Can you see liquidity line, liquidity line, liquidity line? So then we can suddenly, now we can go into a lower time frame. We've got price action. So now if we're on a lower time, we can also see we got a trend line break either like that or trend line break like that. It tapped into liquidity over here and over here. So then if we turn on Trend X, you can see then all of a sudden we get this new weekly pivot that's tight. So we can almost assume that like it's gone through this phase, it tapped in. This could be kind of like a bit of an expansion phase, and now it's on the pivot, narrow pivot, which means, you know, these pivots mean trending markets. So now we know now it could be taking off and the trend could be beginning, because we've also got another pivot, like another trend line, kind of like that. There's so many different ways to like analyze and do your technical analysis, but like once you do it this way, like I like to always look. I've spent a lot of like time doing price action, so like I only really started using these indicators after my price action like learnings. So combining them all together, and I definitely think it's important to have a good. So maybe what I'll do is like on the next couple sessions, I'll just focus on like maybe one a week. I'll just focus on some solid price action, so that because I mean you can trade just on price action, but it's kind of hard to spot these pivots with price action. I've tried, you know, to find narrow and ranging pivots. So this just adds another edge component on top of your price action.
To complete that function, because we started from the scratch of the empty chart, identified the wicks for liquidity. Where
Yes.
should you have understood that going into 8 p.m. Eastern last night when it started to print that weekly? When you entered that trade, what was your target? The top of that liquidity still, or are you looking something in the middle?
This could be a major target zone, because we can see price keeps coming back here. Price comes in, or we can just go off the weekly lines, and you can see like okay, if we look at the weekly lines, they kind of coincide. You can see we've got resistance 1, resistance 2, and resistance 3. So like maybe it's got a big chance it's going to come to this level. Like we never really know for sure, but we can just create like probabilities based on our technical analysis. But in this case, like I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up to here and taps into this level, and then this is a level where you could be looking for a great short, you know. Like wherever price taps into liquidity levels, like it usually drops off those levels. Like you'll be surprised if you grab like 10 or 20 charts, put it on like a 12-hour or a 2-day, and just start marking liquidity. You're going to see every time it taps into that level, we get a rejection and it drops down. You'll see like over here, what happened. Look there, tapped in there.
I might have a great trade for you. Have a look at Portal.
Yes.
Portal.
Okay, let's have a look.
I've used instead of using the rest of the stuff, I only use the TDI thing.
Oh, great! Really, just the TDI, fantastic.
Yeah, and I just looked at one of the shark fins, and I got in at a really good area. Now I've got 3 yellow lines on the 50-minute.
Okay, let's turn this off. So what time frame did you enter on?
I don't know. I just looked at the shark fin thing.
Oh, great. Okay, look at that.
And I got in at 181.8 something. Is it? Sorry.
Probably down. Yeah, probably somewhere over here.
189.
189. Okay,
where the shark fin was green. I got in there, and now I'm in my chart. I've just got 3 yellow lines being printed, which are together on the 50-minute. I mean, you have that.
Perfect. And look how nice and tight the pivot is. Like this was perfect. You see, this was the example I was talking about before. Like price likes to it goes into this expansion phase, and then it shoots off into like a trend phase. So it's like sometimes this pivot acts as a value line, and it comes underneath, and you'll see this would have been your entry in the shark fin. Like you got a very good entry there. It's like excellent. Top
I don't know
entry.
where to get out because I've got all these lines above it. Still trying to sort myself out with the lines.
Okay, wait. So yeah, if you've got too many lines, then and maybe turn off the daily pivot and just keep on the weekly pivot.
All right.
So you can turn off the daily and the monthly. Just keep on the weekly, and it'll keep it super simple. But let's see. Let's look on a higher time frame. Okay, so this is quite a new token. So this thing could actually, or I just don't have data, but you can see over here, if we mark, it's done like a big trend line break. There's not too much data for wicks, but I mean, we can see so far this is all we if we look at the wicks. Sometimes if there's not enough data, it's hard to see where the wicks will be. Let's see in the 8 hour. I mean, this could definitely go up to this point. It could definitely go up to here, this region. Or if you just stick to the actual weekly levels, I'm pretty sure it could go to these levels over here. These new tokens, like how far has this dropped? I also like to see how far has it actually dropped before, so we can calculate. This dropped, 30%, and then it's recovered. So it's like it's done quite a big drop and it's recovering. So like another thing we can also look for is we can
It's
look for
above the
major
Vwap.
support. It's above the Vwap as well. Let's see.
Vwap.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that. It's above the Vwap. It just broke above the 1 hour, EMA as well. So this is looking really bullish at this point. Very, very bullish.
People get in.
I mean, your best entry would have been closer to the pivot. So like it could retrace still, like, so I'd rather wait. If you want to get in, a good thing to do now is you can turn on indicator X on a lower time frame, like a 5 minutes, and then just wait for, so you can see we've got this value line. We want price to get below a value line. So like something we could look for is either we can look for this to come below a value line again to enter. That, like, using indicator X is one of the best tools for re-entries. Like, because we know at this point, we know it's very bullish. It's above the VWAP, it's above the EMA, it's above the weekly pivot. It's also breaking like a very big trend line. So we know this is a very, very bullish token. So if we want to get re-entries, we can just wait for contraction boxes to form, master patterns to form, and then for price to break underneath the value lines. That would be probably the best way to get re-entries into this. Because you can also see over here, we've got a demand zone over here. So I always like to look at demand zones because price likes to come back to these demand zones quite often. Not always, but I like to keep it in mind. So this, for me, like if you guys want to use it, experiment, I'll also check up on it. If it comes below here, taps into the demand zone, could be a very, very good area to re-enter into this, because you'll see at this point, look how it was rejecting off that EMA, rejecting, and then we got a break. And when we got a break, we got this big momentum candles. So these big momentum candles are showing us, this is what lets you know it's a solid break out of here, because it got above here. We got these big candles. So it's showing that our demand has exceeded the supply. Over here, it couldn't break. There wasn't enough demand. Then all of a sudden, lots of demand came in. So like, this thing could either come back and tap into this. If it doesn't, because I mean, like, we can't predict the future ever. If it doesn't, all you want to do is it'll wait for price to maybe go higher. I'll show you. It'll go higher, wait for another contraction box to form, because this is how it plays out when it's in a trend phase. It'll come up, wait for another contraction box to form, and then when price is under the value line, we enter under the value line. Because when price is on a trend, it's on this like continuation. So say price is moving on a trend like this. This is what usually plays out. We get a contraction box, and then we get another one, and then it goes up and creates another one. So we can look for great re-entries underneath over here. But I mean, let's see what happens. But this thing looks very bullish, and it looks like it can still go up quite a lot. If we look on the higher time frame, so you can see over here, if I turn off everything else and I just keep on, this is a higher time frame 6 hour value line. So this could be an area where price would go to. So this could be an area where it would be a target area, and that's like a 20%. That would be one area. Another one is, so I like for targets, I like to look at supply and demand zones, or I mean, there's so many ways to look for targets: liquidity zones, supply and demand zones. Here's another demand zone over here. So it could either break above this one, go to this one. But it's if it breaks above this level here, if it gets on top of here, this thing is probably going to fly, because if you look at the previous price data, you can see that, look here, this is a resistance point, that's a resistance point, that's a resistance point, and then all of a sudden it becomes a support point over here. So this is a very key level over here. If we're just looking at price action, this is a very, very key level. So the way we can find these amazing key levels is just looking for areas where price has flipped from support to resistance. So you can see this was resistance, resistance, and then support. And then it's got mild support over here. And then it breaks under, and then it kind of, it's never 100% perfect, but then this is kind of like a resistance. And then it breaks and drops down. So if it recovers this level, we could get a very big move happening. But I'm sure it's going to go back to that level, because you can see we've had a big trend line break. And it's on top of a weekly. Where's the monthly in this equation? I wonder if there even is a monthly. Probably not even. No, it's not even a monthly, because it's a new token. So yeah, that is how I would kind of analyze it and put it together. So let's see. I mean, this is a very big trend line that it just broke. And it's above the EMA, the VWAP. So it's looking good. I mean, this thing could just take off now. Nice find. Was this in the Trendex weekly?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Yeah, was it?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yes, sure.
What alert would you set if you were looking for another contraction box? Say you were following that token and you wanted to see if there was another contraction box above.
I'll show you now. So I would basically say we were looking on a 5-minute or okay, I'll turn on indicator X. So you can right click and go to add alerts. And then here we've got quite a few different alerts. So the one you would look for is going to be, I would go here for number 3A, which is the multi-bar, a minor master pattern formation. So the minors happen first. They happen first, and these are the gray ones. So what you see right here is a minor master pattern formation.
So would that be set on whatever time frame you're on? So if you're on a lower time frame, it would pick up quicker.
Yeah, so right now I'm on the 10 minutes, so that would be alerted on the 10-minute only. So if I wanted to alert on the 5-minute, I have to come on the 5-minute and then do it again on the 5-minute as well for it to alert on the 5-minute. And then maybe you could even do one on the 1-minute, because if you wanted to get like a really precise entry, because you can see the 1 minute, on the 1 minute, you guys get crazy good entries. You can see over here, here's a perfect example of it playing out already, like the continuation. At this point over here, you can see price is above the EMA, it's above the VWAP, and it's above the weekly pivot. And then we get the master pattern forming. Okay, it's a 1 minute, so it's a very low time frame. Price breaks below. We kind of got like we got a shark fin actually under there. So this would have been a re-entry into this uptrend that's occurring already. And then here was another kind of tiny one over there. And we're probably going to get another one, but this is on the 1 minute. You see, if we go into the 5-minute, it's a different. It's still there actually on the 5-minute, but probably not on the 10-minute or the. Yeah, you see, so we got to kind of go into quite a low time frame, but just here on the 5-minute, we didn't actually even get a shark fin over here. So the 1 minute, it was super clear, like this was extremely clear, because it's also hitting liquidity line. I'll show you over here. I always look out for these liquidity reversals, which are also really, really usually happens quite a lot. So you can see, look, at this point, it's hitting a liquidity line over there, this liquidity line, which is the major swing. You can see the swing point over there. And then we get this shark fin over here. And you so look, if you look at the TDIX here, can you see it starts to squeeze? If you look at the Bollinger Bands, they get tight, 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 and then all of a sudden it expands out and we get shooting out of it. So this usually happens at these reversal moments, because remember this is a cycle that's happening over here, and it's designed to confuse the retailer and to take the retailer's money. That's what it's actually designed for. So usually it's not as obvious as this, but this is pretty obvious, because look, we've even got a 1 minute trend line break here. So price breaks below here. A lot of people think it's dropping, so they'll enter their shorts, and then all of a sudden it'll shoot up to liquidate. And I mean, look how perfect this was. It went straight up to these liquidity levels. Here was the liquidity line over here. Like tapped it perfectly. See, so you could have, if you wanted to just do a little scalp, you could have entered here and exited here, or if you wanted to do a continuation, you could enter here and then you could hold it, because see, that's why it's important to look on a higher time frame, because right now on a lower time frame, it's impossible to get any idea of where it's going to go or how high it could go. So that's why if we come into like a 4 hour, we can see, oh, it's very low down still. It's actually just broken the 1 hour EMA, broken. So see now, if I'm just looking at indicator X and I turn off everything else, I turn off trend X and I turn off the VWAP, you can see we've got liquidity lines. We've got a liquidity line over here, which price will probably go towards. Got liquidity lines over here. So these can be other targets where price will like to go. This is a really, really good one over here, because you can see this is where price was previously. It flipped. You see it was support. It broke it. Then it became resistance. So this is like quite a key level over here. And that could be a target that if we wanted to get a very good target, that it's very likelihood of it reaching, which is 9%, which is still very good. So then we can, if we see this as a higher target, we can go into a lower time frame, and then we know we got a bunch of continuation trades we can enter until it reaches that level, because it's clearly on an uptrend now, because it's on a narrow pivot, which is showing that it's trending. It's above the EMA, it's above the VWAP. So it's giving us a very good sign. So like, I wouldn't be surprised now if it like, what it usually does, it'll kind of shoot up. It shoots up, and then it starts to form another master pattern and do a bit of ranging, then shoot up. You'll see this is kind of how it likes to move.
Bitcoin is just past 70,000.
It just did what?
Past 70 grand. 70,000.
What did Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's good news. That's very good news. Yeah, we might get some big movement with all the tokens then. So it's but you can see this is probably what it's going to do now. So like, I don't know if it'll drop lower. We'll have to just see. But that's kind of the strategy that you would look for in this situation, if it's very strong. But
those three liquidity lines above it, my brain keeps wanting to relate this to like Pac-Man and those little dots being there, as though it kind of wants to just go up and eat those. It does. Do you when you're looking at the liquidity above and below, and you see the amount, like if you see a tight band of liquidity above it, and like a larger band or vice versa, how are you applying those liquidity lines into your confluence?
They're just targets. I'm just using them as targets. See, but it also just depends, because
they also, so as you said, they also act as resistance and support in some cases. So
yeah,
in the
definitely.
case, if they're below, is that a point of support and above resistance, or could they be either?
You're talking about these liquidity lines, these ones here.
Correct. Yes, I've been watching over the weekend as Bitcoin was doing its thing, and I saw it kind of roving around like Pac-Man, trying to just gobble them up. And when I saw a bunch of them below, I kind of went, all right, well, let me send an alert down there, and I'm just going to walk away and see if my theory is right. And sure as heck, it turns around and it came down, num, and then it bounced back up and off it goes.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating here how it works. I mean, if you look here, all of this liquidity was taken out. Like every single one of this liquidities was taken out. Look, everyone was taken out, and then it hit the last one, and then it reversed. So it's chances are it's probably going to go take out all of these. Like I've observed many charts. Price loves to take out the liquidities. It just, and then it might come back down and take out all the liquidity again. So it's just kind of like, it's just going for liquidity to liquidity. I mean, that is the core of how the market moves. Just travels from because these are all stop loss levels. You know, all these people who have shorted the market over here, this is their stop losses. So it's going to go for those stop losses. Like over here is probably a lot of stop losses just resting right here.
If you want to
all
see,
these traders, yeah.
If you want to see a coin on the move, go to your daily pivot list and look at FTM.
Okay, let's have a look.
I blew so much on the weekend trying to enter Phantom at the bottom, looking at that liquidity level, and I should have just trusted my gut, pointed down at those last couple pieces of liquidity it was going to come for, and just left it alone instead of enter, stop, enter, stop, enter, stop, and then it ripped up.
Oh, it's crazy how that works here.
How about we look at a coin that hasn't taken off? Like Bohm is like trying to poke his head above the weekly now. Like that's like the only one from the whole list that hasn't
hasn't taken off yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look in 2 seconds. So you can
things
see
that don't
here,
care about Bitcoin.
I don't look at Bitcoin too often, to be honest. But you can see over here it broke a trend line, FTM. So it broke a trend line. This is how you would have. Okay, look, if I turn off the weekly, this is how we would have seen what was going to happen. It was very clear. This will be the third time that you'll see that. Look at this grid over here. Look how wide it is and how messy it is. And then look at the next day's grid. It's so neat and compact. Whenever you see that happening, it's like it shows you that it's like price is squeezing and squeezing. And also if you see it's breaking a trend line over here. So whenever price breaks a trend line and gets onto a tight pivot, usually we get a big movement over there. And you can see like we would have entered either on the grid. I mean, both times we could have entered directly on the grid. This would have been our really good entries. Came up, and then it was another trend line break. So like sometimes you can see these trend lines work quite nicely. If we go like to 5 minutes. This is what happens. Price usually comes up, it retraces, breaks the trend. Let's look at the EMA, the Vwap. Okay, wait, let's take the Vwap away for now. And then I just want to look at the weekly pivots. Oh, you can see. So this was perfect. It was above the weekly pivots. If you get a tight pivot, like a tight daily, that's above, like just above a weekly, that is usually like a very strong resistance because it's showing you this is a very strong resistance point, the daily and the weekly. That's strong resistance because when they're next to each other, it's almost showing an increased resistance. We've got trend line breaks at the point where we've got this narrow pivot. This is this would have been like a this is like a textbook trade, like proper textbook trade. Okay, let's have a look at Bohm. You said it was Bohm, B-O-M-E. Is it in the weekly as well?
Yeah, Bohm.
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that the one you've been trading all week?
It's the one I've been trading all week. I haven't traded for the last 2 days. I kind of gave it a break. But this one was also like a very nice coin to trade. I'll show you. I'll go back in time and show you. Yeah, so if it gets back on here, this could be a good place to look for an entry because it almost looks like it wants to get back. I'm just going to turn that off. It almost looks like it wants to get back onto the weekly. Can you see it started? Let's turn on the EMA. So this is a good sign. So look, it's just recovered on the EMA, which is a good sign. It started when the market opened up. I saw this morning and I actually saw it dropping down here. So I wasn't too sure about it, but like this would be a good place to start looking for an entry. If it does recover onto this level, that could be an excellent place to look for an entry. If we go into like a higher time frame, so look at this, guys. Okay, so we're going to look at some price action now. You can see we've got a very massive like squeeze happening. So I mean, this thing could it pretty much could explode any second, to be honest. Look at that. That's really big. This thing could, This is one of those tokens that when it does move, it's like, I don't know if you guys saw this when it was taking off. It literally shot up like 500%. This coin in one day went to a 1 billion market cap. Like, I've never seen that happen before, to be honest. So like, I think this is a good one to keep on your radar. Very good one to keep on your radar, because at this point over here, if it recovers on this weekly, you know, like I would want to see it maybe get on top of this weekly, find a bit of support, and then it could shoot up from there. And the target for this, like the first target could be these liquidity areas over here, which is 30%. I mean, that seems pretty doable with the token that moves like this. You can see, look how it's respecting supply and demand. It's hitting, this is a demand zone. This is a supply zone up here. It's got a nice squeeze happening. I mean, this is a tight squeeze happening. This is the apex, guys. It's like, it's in the apex. And it just so happens that you will notice that whenever you find apexes, they usually occur when there's a narrow weekly. The narrow weekly is basically the Trendex way of showing an apex occurring. You'll notice this a lot. That's why it occurs at like the breaks of trend lines. So it hasn't broken this trend line yet. It hasn't, or maybe it has actually. Let's have a look. Actually, it has broken the trend line. Okay, so it actually has broken this trend line. And it's now all we want to see is if it gets on top of this weekly pivot, which actually looks like it is going to, guys. So keep this on your radar, guys. This could be a big one. Thanks to
it tapped wick twice above the weekly pivot, and it's just bouncing off the daily pivot, top of the daily pivot now.
I've put a long in already with a stop loss just below the EMA.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to get into this as well, guys. This is great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks for that. Yeah, you see, like it really helps when we're all looking at different things and showing each other, because we can't look at everything.
Can I just say something quickly?
Yeah.
Just on the other question about the FOMO, they talk about in crypto banter. So one is like you could put low leverage to start with. So I put a 3x on this guy, stop loss just below EMA, and as soon as it breaks out, then I can whack the leverage to 10, and I don't fear him missing out. And you can do 5 different positions if you just to stop FOMO basically.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, guys. So what he's saying is you just enter on low leverage initially, and then when it gets into safer territory, you can increase your leverage, and then you can feel safer with your trade, and to stop FOMO, because at least you entered into a lower position, so you're not going to sacrifice too much if it turns against you. But this looks really good. Like
it's
the
really
reason I was
moving.
trading this thing, because this thing moves. Like, I've never seen a token move like this, and the market cap's dropped massively, so it's in a good recovery phase, and it looks like it's about to get on top of this pivot. So
those vector candles and the way that you were showing how it rhymes when the token first came out and you were trading, dude, if we go into the higher time frame of like the hourly or the 4 hour, would those vectors come into play with the TA right now to see that it still has to recover those in any way, or are those canceled out in your?
Yeah, you see, it cancels it out when it gets above it. So like if it gets on top of these, so like if we do this over here, we'll see that this is kind of the region. But the reason I see it's canceling out, because it's going into a squeeze. So like usually these, can you see this is actually how it's playing out now. It's going into a squeeze, and look at this, guys. This thing looks like it wants to like pop actually. It's gonna get above here.
Yeah, I mean, all 42 of us just aping in.
Yeah.
Good idea.
That's a good idea.
Pump it, guys. Let's pump it.
How do you think banter calls look so good for the first 20 minutes after their lives?
Always. Like I'm often in that studio, because my office is in the studio with Sheldon. So like whenever they give calls, like I'm already getting in like before he gives the call, you know. Seen it happen so many times. It's crazy how like just 1,000 people entering a token can make that token shoot so much.
The residency laws in South Africa.
What's that?
Are you based in South Africa?
Yes, yeah. We
I just say, what are the residency laws? Get everyone to immigrate to
The residency rules. I think they're pretty open, actually. I think they're pretty open. I think it's very easy to get into South Africa.
We're thinking of office, mate.
The office.
You'd only need to be there for about 30 days and then you just buy your own.
Yeah, you just come. You know, you guys, like Crypto Banter is a place where we have people coming there and just hanging out there for weeks because they've got like places to work and people just come and chill. It's like quite an open door hub for anyone. So like if you guys ever come and chill and spend a few days and meet everyone and like take some good calls, because like if you just sit in that office for like one day, you get 100 calls. Buy this, buy this, buy this. It's like sometimes you have to, it's like so hard to resist because people are bringing you calls all the time and you the FOMO is like, it's really overwhelming actually. Okay, so this is it, guys. Okay, so pay attention to this one. I think this is gonna blow. It's gonna blow up soon. But I mean, it could go the other way because, like, when you get an equilateral, can you see it's like it's an equal. What do they call these diagonals? You can see. Wait, that's not.
Isosceles triangle, you mean?
Is it isosceles? You can see, look, we've got the diagonal forming here. So like, it can go this way, but like it could also go this way. I don't think it is going to in this situation, but it's just so good to just keep it in mind. That's why I would wait. Like I haven't FOMO'd in yet, just to let you guys know.
What would be the like knowing the position it's in and watching the price action in the, say, the last 15-20 minutes, looking at, say, the 1 minute or the 5 minute time frame, what would you be watching for red flags or green flags on whether you would enter there?
I would want it to, like, okay, the fact that it's above this EMA is a very good sign, and you can keep a stop loss under the EMA, because if it's really broken and holding the EMA, it won't break back below this EMA. So like the risk would be pretty low if your stop loss was in the EMA. Otherwise, I would wait for it to get on the pivot and find some support. If it finds support on the pivot, then that would be like a very, very good sign. But the fact that it broke below, you see, was below the pivot now, and now it's recovering the pivot. That's also a good sign, because price doesn't usually recover on top. So if it gets on top of this pivot, it's showing that like there is a lot of strength in this asset and it could be building up. Also, the fact that now it's getting on top of the liquidity. So like, can you see these liquidity lines? It's actually getting on top of them now. Usually it rejects the liquidity. You'll see over here, look, it rejected it over here. It rejected it over here. It rejected here and here. But now it's actually on top of it. So those are like the little pieces of the puzzle that are kind of like.
Also, the fact that Bitcoin is kind of trending up now is
another. Yeah, and that also adds to it. So
pump.
Go. But but if you just keep your stop loss under this 1 hour 200 EMA, that's a really good safe place. And like, if you had to enter now, it would only really be would kind of be
I saw a tweet that there's a short squeeze on Bitcoin right now.
Really? Hey.
Yeah, they're saying like $6 billion will be liquidated if it gets to 75K.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, let's see what's going to happen. I mean, sometimes those short squeezes can actually drive the price up as well. So let's see what happens. But this looks good. I'm going to watch this. This is going to be my new coin for the next few days again. Thanks. Okay, guys. I've actually got to run. I can't even believe it's almost it's getting super late on my side of the world. But I didn't even get to
just a hint. Just a hint, guys. I think your EMA, your red one, is not on the 1 hour, because if okay, my one is also on the 1 hour and it's above the weekly pivot.
Really?
Yeah.
On the same coin, on BOEM.
It's BOEM on BOEM Tether US perpetual contract on Binance.
Oh, Binance. Maybe Binance.
Are you
I've
on
noticed that.
Bybit?
I think Binance could be different.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. Then which one do you trust? You know.
Now on Bybit, it's the same. Okay.
If you type .p then it's the perpetual contract. You actually took the tokens, the spot contract when you pulled up the chart.
Oh, let's have a look.
No, if you really take the perpetual on Binance, it's vice versa. The EMA on the
Wow, look
weekly.
at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
Oh,
Pump it, guys. Pump it. Oh my gosh.
pump. Helps if you put
There you
your
go.
like this.
Looking quite strong. It's looking strong. Okay, guys. I'm gonna go
So you're
into
saying
the
you
trade.
would wait for a retest from this point before you would enter?
I would wait for a retest, or like if it breaks with a nice strong candle, I can just set your stop loss. I mean, if you set your stop loss underneath here, but I mean, if you really want to be secure, you could wait for like a little retest or price to get up here and retest a little bit. That would be the safest thing to check. But look at this candle. I mean,
Low leverage, stop loss.
that's
trade.
like, if it closes with this big candle, it's like showing a lot of strength. See, that's a lot of demand coming in the market. But you see, I just wanted to get past here because this area here, you can see we've got lots of wicks over here. So like, but look at that, it's going here. Wow. Peace, guys. Okay,
It's just
see you guys later. I'm gonna go into.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Zach.
guys.
Yes,
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks a
Zach.
lot as well.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Cover the stuff
Bye.
you want to
Cheers,
do
cheers.
after training.
Guys.
Cheers,
Cool, man.
Bye,
Cheers, guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Good luck.